for National Youth Council, Eyeru Jacob, and he's going to be telling us, first of all, what the council is doing, what's their obligation, and paint for us a picture about the participation of youth in the politics of this country. Hello, Jacob.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome to Youth of Purpose. Kindly introduce yourself.
By way of introduction, my name is Jacob Eyeru. My home district is Soroti, the land of Teso.
Soroti is in the
Soroti is in the eastern part of this country.
Yes.
If you use the bus or go by road, you will be talking about somewhere near 320 kilometers from Kampala. And that's where we call home.
Okay.
I am very honored to serve the young people of this country as the National Youth Chairperson. It's for the generation as it is and for where our country is, it's perhaps the most important role that I have held in my life, and I foresee to have held for my life. Because our country is by very much a very young country, and now is a time when young people and the leadership of young people must make an indelible contribution in terms of what we bring to the table for the country, much more than what we demand from the country. This is a time when we must see how young people are leading the country into a place of our hope.
You are the home of the National Youth Council. Tell us about it.
The National Youth Council is the apex structure of the leadership of young people in this country. It has a committee at the village. Every village in this country, over 69,000 villages, now there are over 70,000 in the last election, has a committee of youth, 9 people. And those are the people that were lined up behind, to be elected as the youth leaders. They have to be between 18 and 30 years. Then those went to the parish and elected 9 at the parish. Those went to the sub-county to elect the 9 of the sub-county. Then 3 from the sub-county went to the district to elect the 9 of the district. 3 from each district came to the national level to elect the 11 of the country. So I am the chairperson elected at the 11 of the country, but I had to come from my village up to the national level. So being a member of a National Youth Council, National Executive Committee is a hard task. You have very many elections.
Before we even come to your task,
yes.
Those are very many positions, talking from the LOC until the national level.
Yes.
What are you doing, guys? And really, should you even be complaining that, you know, the youth are not given enough space to participate in politics? For you who are engaged and have those positions, what are you doing? Firstly,
our mandate is very clear. The National Youth Council is established by the National Youth Council Act of 1993. It has had a sequence of amendments, but the mandate has never been amended. Our mandate is in section 3, and it says we are there to unite the youth. We are there to involve them in issues of productivity to them. And then we are there to protect the youth from manipulation. Why young people continue, even with the presence of the National Youth Council, to say that we are not being listened to, we are not being heard, is because the National Youth Council decisions are not ultimately the decisions implemented in the country. There are very many levels of implementation in the country, and those levels of implementation do not always reflect the position of the National Youth Council. And that is why, even when you have that vehicle, which is the National Youth Council, there is need for continuous assessment in terms of what government is bringing out, what political actors are doing, what local governments are implementing, and how they actually relate to the needs of young people. So that is why continuous agitation is very important. So that is why we continue. But in terms of what we are actually doing, the National Youth Council holds a National Youth Council sitting annually by law, and it has to happen at least once. And in terms of that sitting, we get young people's voices in terms of what is affecting young people at the grassroots, and what are the current needs that we need to project in terms of a necessity. But also as a country, where should young people be going in terms of the forward-looking programs of government. So for example, now young people are talking a lot about the situation of teenage pregnancies and how they can play a role or contribute to what government needs to do to change that trend. COVID has happened and people have lost jobs. None bigger than the demographic reality of young people losing jobs and not having a platform for them to actually earn their livelihoods. So the National Youth Council plays a pivotal role in ensuring that government looks at youth and ensures that they are still afloat. How do we get stimulus packages for businesses? How do we get stimulus packages for people who have lost jobs? How do we protect businesses that are dying and of young people? How do we create alternative livelihoods for young people in a way that they feel like they are as much Ugandan as the rich man who gets government to give him a lot of money for his business?
Is action being taken to all those challenges you've talked about when you represent the young people as the National Youth Council, or it's just about talking? Is your voice really that relevant?
Firstly, our voice is very relevant. Whether action is taken or not, your voice is very relevant.
Okay.
Because I'll give you an example. The struggle for the independence of the countries did not happen in one day, neither in 1 year. In fact, some people who began struggles did not see them through. Same goes for our liberation struggle as a country from 1980 to 1985, 86. People that started it did not start it then.
Sure.
President Museveni was trying to liberate the country all the way back from 1968, 69 as a student.
66.
You understand? So it is not that your voice is an end in itself. It is a means to an end. So it is a responsibility for us to have our voices added. But even in terms of results, we are having results. For instance, government is now implementing a stimulus package of 200 billion for MSMEs, where most of the young people are employed. And that is a product of continuous advocacy. Government has now adopted a quota system on the parish development model funds, which is a product of continuous advocacy by the Youth Council. Government has accepted to start a graduate startup scheme for graduate youth in terms of financing entrepreneurship for them. That is a direct product of the National Youth Council. As recent as the International Youth Day on 12th August, we made known that idea and the President bought into it. Now we are working on the dynamics of how implementation would work. So our voices are not in vain. The vanity is in not having a voice. The youth cannot lack a voice that speaks for them, whether it's in Parliament or through the structure of a National Youth Council.
Getting you right there, but away from the affirmative action of youth in Parliament and all that, kindly paint for us the picture of youth participation, youth engagement in politics in this country.
One, Uganda is perhaps the most democratized country in terms of structure for youth involvement. Whether talking about youth or women, we are a best practice situation country. Every country that looks at our structure on paper is more than happy to want to learn from us. We are the most inclusive political structure in the world. I can say that without a fear of doubt. So in terms of whether we have voices everywhere, there is no doubt. What we need to work on is the impact of those voices everywhere. Because Parliament, for example, has 5 youth members of Parliament. But in terms of the constitution of youth in Parliament, we have over 20 direct youth members of Parliament who are below the age of 30. If you look at the constitution of members of Parliament who have come through National Youth Council structures or youth leadership structures, whether student leadership or something, and therefore they relate easily with the demands of young people, you're looking at over 100 people. So the mobilization of youth issues or for youth issues should be an easygoing, but the understanding and the organization to always structure those people and those institutions to focus on young people is not always present. Because today they are handling issues of teachers. Teachers drag the whole year. Before you know it, your nurses who are on strike drag the whole year. The conversation of youth, the responsibility to present that conversation is of direct representation, whether it is by youth members of Parliament or it is by the National Youth Council. And so that is where our actions are now very critical.
Why is it
as a
that
country.
At most times when we've seen the voice of young people come out so loud in politics, it's so much portrayed to be of violence? Why?
No, it's because of the reality. It's not portrayed to be. It is because
Is
we
it
have
true
allowed...
that the youth
No.
who are participating in it are violent.
In part, and that's what I'm talking about. That it's because we have allowed that narrative to be the growing narrative. That those young people that can be the voices of reason are not talking. And they have left that, because the political space is always present and someone always occupies it.
Yes.
Either the army occupies it if there is no democracy and there is dictatorship, the army will just occupy it, or tribalism will occupy it if the voices of nationalism are not there, or nationalism will occupy it if the voices of Pan-Africanism cannot be allowed.
Should we say that's the nature of the
no,
environment?
Let me complete the
that
point.
we have?
Yeah, no, it isn't. That's what I'm saying. That the young people who have gone through school exist. They know about the cycle, but they are disinterested. Their sense of patriotism to contribute to their country is absent. And unless we get those young people interested, the politics will always attract the ones who realize that there is space and it requires people and the qualifications are no education, so I can go in. There is space, it requires S6 equivalent, but S6 equivalent does not mean you passed S6. It means you sat. True. So every failure can be there. You understand? So it is the responsibility of those of you that have gone through school and have developed a sense of understanding that this country is yours. The outcomes of our development are our own to describe and to manufacture. To step there and offer your contribution. If you offer your contribution and it's violent, we'll then describe the contribution of young people as violent. If you offer it and it is civilized and it is debate and it is idea driven, you will redefine the contribution of young people in this country. So that is where we come in with leadership.
Are there models that can really mentor the young people to play politics that is clean and politics of value that helps our country to develop?
Yes. Firstly, our history is not without examples. Every actor of independence in Africa was a young person. All our actors were below 35. They grew into the action. I'll give you an example of Mzee Mandela.
Yes.
For 27 years, he was in prison. For him to qualify for that prison, he had acted for at least 10 years backwards to qualify to be in prison for 27 years. People like Steve Bantu Biko was a student leader in South Africa who lost his life for apartheid fight. If you look at President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, while a student of university, forget us who are talking about the age of 30. While between the age of 18 and 23, he was going to liberate the people of Mozambique and contribute to that struggle. If you look at Uganda's story, whether you're looking at Dr. Apollo Milton Obote or you're looking at our first Chief Justice, you're still talking about people who are in the prime of their youthfulness, who came out of their youthful necessity of demanding who can I marry, to realizing what the country needs. Even the liberation struggle was hinged around young people. General Kyomugisha Muntu, by the time he was army commander, he was 27 years of age. He had already fought since 22 for a very ideological war.
In that prime age that you're talking about, say they are not being given space.
No, I think that, like I started with, there is enough space in Uganda. The question is the quality of the contribution you're bringing. If the National Youth Council under my leadership achieves nothing, you can't blame it on the president. The National Youth Council exists. You can't blame it on the parliament. The National Youth Council exists. If the youth members of parliament initiate no bill in parliament, you can't blame it on parliament. The private members option exists. The quality of a generation, of a contribution of our leadership as young people is dependent on young people. It has no dependence on the old. I can tell you that young people deciding to strike tomorrow is a contribution, but it is one that they have elected. Rather than them sitting down to have a conversation, they have decided to sit down and have a strike. So the contribution is always present, whether by omission or commission, it's always a contribution.
Okay, thank you so much, Jacob. Now we are going to listen into a number of youth. They are going to be telling us, are they really being given space? Is the space available? Are those ones who are already in the politics, who have leadership positions, playing their role? We'll be right back.